Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be talking about Absolute Batman issue 7 by Scott Snyder, Marcos Martin and Munsa Vicente. Winter has come for Gotham City this issue as Batman faces his weirdest villain yet, and that's definitely saying something as Scott Snyder introduces us to the Absolute Mr. Freeze this issue. Interestingly, beginning with a very brief childhood flashback of a young Victor, who along with his father is traveling through Tanzania in search of a glacier, but Victor would rather stay down in the jungle instead of going up into the mountains with his father. Suddenly something happens to the young boy and he begins bleeding from his eyes, which is never really a good sign. In present day Gotham, Waylon, Ozzy, Harvey and Edward meet on a snow-swept alleyway to pay respects to Mitchell Matches Malone, another of their childhood friends who recently died. Waylon lights a match for his fallen friend, remembering the game they would play involving a matchbook, and the one whose match hit the book before anyone else's got to choose what the other kids were stealing. So Matches Malone being a character here was very surprising. You know, he's a big part of Batman's mythos, and I thought he would turn up eventually, but like the other villains, Snyder is tying him directly into Bruce's childhood and making him a bigger part of his life. I do wonder how, now that he's part of Bruce's life, if he'll ever use that name as a disguise later on in life like what Batman usually does with Matches. It's a fun change of the dynamic that while it takes something that Bruce would often use to infiltrate the underworld, this disguise of Matches Malone, it then also broadens his past and ties it to the city and to all of these other villains and family. As the friends finish paying their respects, Bruce arrives, revealing that he was the last to see Matches alive. 1 week prior, Bruce heads through a very different Gotham City as, in the wake of Black Mask's attack, Gotham has been put under martial law. So police and soldiers are out in force to protect against threats much like Batman. I really like that this is a sort of catch-up on what's been going on in Gotham over the past month. And it feels like this is the sort of thing you'd see after a big event series. You know, they have that sort of, you know, an issue that gives you the lay of the land of what's happening. And this is what this feels like, except everything that happened was just a little gang war in the grand scheme of things. It was just a little like block war, more or less. I really like how heightened everything feels in the Absolute Universe. Like a small gang war here feels like some big, huge shift in the world. And really it is, because the world is brand new and like this sort of stuff is only just now happening in the world. Everything's just sort of starting to come out in the Absolute Universe. So I like that little things like this are like big things. It's not just immediately going to full-scale alien invasions, other Earths intruding or something. It's just little things like criminals, you know, trying to take over cities and stuff like that. Bruce reveals that Alfred has told him to lay low and go back to work. Only Gotham has shut down all construction jobs until further notice, effectively making Bruce jobless. There is a neat reference here to Lucius Fox, where he's Bruce's boss, and it's something I don't think has been mentioned before, and I like that. That's like another dynamic shift here, whereas usually Lucius is one of Bruce's employees and works for him, and now it's the other way around, which is quite cool. On top of work drying up, a freak snowstorm is predicted to hit Gotham very soon, further changing the feel of the city and adding this sense of dread to it. Ark M also finally gets another mention here, as Bruce has discovered that facility being constructed off the coast of the city is being made by a company called JK, and thus puts him on his next mission: infiltrate JK and find out what Ark M is all about. Now obviously we know what JK is. Obviously that's, you know, the, you know, shortened version of Joke, and obviously the Joker is behind all of this Ark M stuff. So I think Bruce is about to crack open like this worldwide conspiracy. This is the larger story at play here, rather than the gang wars. To get onto the building crew, Bruce meets with Matches Malone, hoping his old friend can work his fake ID magic and get him papers for the work crew. I think it's beyond hilarious that Bruce here, it's very obvious now that we've met Matches, we finally see him, that Bruce can never, you know, use Matches' identity in this universe. He can never disguise himself as Matches Malone, at least from what I'm seeing right here, because like it would never feasibly work. Like they look like two completely different people, and Bruce could never feasibly disguise himself as the man. The man's like short and gaunt and red hair, and you know, just all these things that Bruce is the complete opposite of. And I really like that idea of Scott using this as a chance to kind of strip that away from Bruce and kind of, you know, make it so that he can't use the Matches Malone persona. Matches, however, seems quite nervous, acting like everything is fine and revealing that he's got Bruce's work papers, but he also did him one better, actually getting into Ark M himself by impersonating a worker. Matches tells him there is something very off with Ark M, since it's already up and running despite still being under construction. He shows Bruce a phone telling him it's got some info on it about Ark M, but Bruce is not happy about one of his friends putting themselves in the firing line. Now Bruce's reaction here is really interesting, since he seems very disappointed that he wasn't the one to do the infiltration. Like he hates that his friends are putting himself on the line of fire and that it rather be him. And I can't also help but think that there is also some sort of like a little bit of an ego thing there as well. Like he's the one who has to do it. He has to do it because he's the only one capable of doing it. Kind of like what we've seen Batman do before, where he believes he's the only one for a certain mission or like a certain thing. It's an arrogance that seems to be inherent in all Bruce Waynes. Matches tells Bruce that he misses him and the other guys, alluding to owing him for something, but before he can tell Bruce what that is, Match's face bleeds from every pore on it and he falls over dead, having bled out every inch of his blood. In the chaos of Match's death, Bruce almost fires on a bystander running by, revealing that the cast he has on his arm springs open to reveal a crossbow. Now at this point, these sorts of things are just expected. This is a Batman who is very gadget heavy and he has very cool gadgets. They're not just like miscellaneous items that, Lucius Fox has whipped up for him at Wayne Tech. These are things that he has built, and I like that. It also looks like it's something that's like viable, like you could actually build one of these if you wanted to, because this Bruce is an engineer. He's building things just out of like things you buy down at the Home Depot. Before anyone can see what is going on, Bruce grabs the phone Matches had for him and runs. Back in the present, Bruce's friends are all shocked to actually see him alive, but Bruce warns them that Matches was killed by a biological weapon and he's tracking who did it. However, he wanted to let his friends know first. Bruce's friends are understandably a bit pissed, not because he is Batman or what he is doing as Batman, because he just never told them. They feel a bit betrayed by their friend who, they've known for years and they would think could confide in them. Sometime before, Bruce checks the phone Matches gave him, finding short videos from inside Ark M, which depict people screaming and begging for help. And interestingly, that's not all, as Bruce finds a list of names Matches made. Names like Langstrom and Isley and Strange and Freeze. Obviously all names we as Batman fans know are his villains. Now not much is given about these names, only that none of them seem to have any ties to Gotham City except Victor Freeze, who owns the cryotech company VCore. Now that's really interesting that none of the villains have ties to Gotham, since usually most of them, if not all of them, all originate from Gotham. Either, they work there, they used to grow up there, something happened in Gotham that intrinsically ties them to the city and, they have roots in the city somewhere. But so it's interesting that none of these villains actually do have any. With the lead on VCore, Bruce heads to their Midtown HQ, finding the building is pulling enough electricity to power 10 city blocks, and he wants to know why. Batman glides towards the building, using the incoming snowstorm as a cover, but suddenly the storm just all but disappears on him, exposing him to the police blimps which are out in force, which send drones to catch the vigilante. The book's new artist for the Ark, Marcus Martin, excels at depicting Gotham here. It's this beautiful shot where Batman is flying sort of like on an angle, kind of upside down, and the way like Marcos shows it is really trippy because the city's all like at an angle and upside down, and it just looks really strange. And I like how he depicts the city like that. It is strange. It's a very Frank Miller era Dark Knight Returns with, giant towering buildings and canyon-like streets between them. And then, of course, the police blimps, which he did, as well as the animated series did, so it's nice to see them make a comeback somewhere. That mixed with some awesome and surprisingly ominous coloring from Munster Vicente, it really helps make Gotham feel larger than life, a little bit oppressive and very creepy, very ominous. As Bruce goes into a full dive to evade the drones, Alfred contacts him from London, having found information about what killed Matches, finding that it wasn't a biological weapon, it was a bacterium, not one on any record ever, not even with the HWO. Bruce uses his cool cape hands to swing under a train track and destroy the pursuing drones as they run into the track. And there's this great bit here where Bruce isn't meant to be out as Batman, he's meant to be laying low, and he tries to convince Alfred that he's not out as Batman, telling him that all the noise he hears in the background of their conversation is just the radio. But Alfred doesn't buy it for a second, knowing full well that Bruce does not have a radio, and he, can't really do anything, so he just tells Bruce to be careful as Batman arrives at VCore. I do like that we are still getting stuff with Alfred, even though he's technically quote-unquote out of the picture at the moment. He's over in London, doing some work, and hopefully we do get an issue seeing what he is doing, since there's alluded to, like, he's tying up loose ends maybe, or, still working for this shadowy organization. So it would be really cool to see, like, maybe even an offshoot of, like, Alfred's adventures as this, spy assassin guy. But I do like that Scott still had a chance to include him in Bruce's activities as Batman. In the present, Bruce tells his friends that he shouldn't have told them his secret. And I love they all begin to realize what we have realized several issues ago, that Bruce has been using his friends both to train himself in various subject matters that they all excel in, and then also to get what he needs as Batman. Like, as I said in a previous review, he was using them all effectively as his own Bat computer, because they all had, like, plugins to the underworld, or, like, in Edward's case, he built a machine called the Riddler, which was a prediction model, which could, like, predict things for Batman. He was just using them for all of this stuff, more or less. I'm really glad the realization also came sooner rather than later. Bruce's friends were all really smart, and I don't think they could have had the wool pulled over their eyes for any much longer. Another interesting tidbit about Match's past is revealed as Wayland alludes to Match's being the way he was for a reason, and it's related to their childhood. And maybe something Bruce did, maybe, since they all want to deal with it now that they know everything, they just want to get it out of the way. But Bruce has no intention for them to do that, demanding they just get out of his way so he can get to work. In the past, Bruce ditches the Batsuit and changes into his civilian clothing, sneaking into VCore, posing as a normal city engineer, coming to do a check on why they need so much power. Things begin to get a little creepy as Bruce finds this massive wall of frozen ice filled with mammoths, saber-toothed tigers, and insects adorning the lobby of VCore. In this lobby, he runs into an employee of VCore, who is more than happy to direct him around the building, calling himself the director of the company. Bruce introduces himself as Mr. Pennyworth and notices that the man seems rather happy for the company, even offering to give him a tour of all of Victor and Nora Freeze's stuff that they have collected over the years. Bruce asks if the Freezes are still alive and are active, and the scientist decides to show rather than tell, revealing the frozen bodies of Victor and Nora Freeze, and that he is their son, Victor Freeze Jr. Now, what a reveal this was. Not specifically Victor's name reveal that he's the junior to not Victor's senior, but just this visual of Victor's frozen parents, both who are very much past their expiration date. They're just like withered away corpses. And it's just so creepy. They're like hanging from the wall behind this sheet of ice. They're holding hands. It's very, very weird. Victor reveals that his parents actually wanted this to happen since they share a love of the ice and of the mission of VCore, which is their research into ice preservation, hoping being frozen until cures for their deaths can be found. Now I find this sort of stuff utterly interesting because it's literally real. There's a bunch of places all around the world offering cryo-freezing for people until cures for their diseases can be found. If you have enough money, if you're rich and, of the elites, you can go and have your brain frozen until they, find a suitable body for you. There's just all this, like, really utterly insane stuff out there, but it's just so interesting to me because it's, like, bordering on that science fiction stuff. Like, it's all stuff that is just completely insane, but it's just interesting. And here it's very much in line with what Victor Freeze is usually involved in. He's trying to usually find a cure for his wife Nora and like what happened to her. Or he's like working within ice preservation in some form. Victor reveals that the power his building pulls goes to keeping not just his parents alive, but various other people as well until they can actually be helped. And this is the sort of thing that actually helped him, apparently, as he was once diagnosed with a terminal disease, which I'm guessing we saw in the opening page of this issue. but his parents knew the ice could save him and had him frozen. Bruce, while listening to Victor's talk, begins looking around his office, spotting a sample of the bacterium Alfred told him about, finding that it's an ancient microorganism. As Bruce investigates further, Victor begins changing, feeling the ice wasn't what his parents thought, as it allowed him to feel every moment of pain and suffering. And the ice isn't some graceful, flowing, all-healing thing they thought it was, it's fury. Bruce finds that Victor has turned into some sort of hideous monster, which grabs Bruce and begins freezing his veins. So this is a damn cool reveal for absolute Mr. Freeze. This is a totally different take on the character. We've seen Mr. Freeze, in various forms where he's, a guy in a cold suit, with a big freeze gun. He has had powers for a short amount of time during the New 52. All these various different takes on this, but this has to be the most refreshing and just completely different take, as Scott is using his vast knowledge of horror and his experience as a horror writer to actually make him a very formidable and very terrifying villain here. And as someone who loves this sort of stuff, like, ancient microorganisms that change the body, or like viruses and stuff like that, I just love every moment of this. And it reminds me of just something I've seen recently called the Greylock Tapes, which is an excellent analog horror series on YouTube that I suggest you take a look at, because it's very similar here, where, scientists unearth something that begins changing them. But one thing I did begin to realize as the issue went on is that the sequence with Bruce talking with his friends, that's set in the present, and Bruce's infiltration to VCore here and his interaction with Victor here is set in the past. And the present day stuff, we actually never get to see Bruce at all. He's always in the shadow and we just see his outline, and he's very angry and almost violent towards his friends. So I wonder if maybe Victor did something to him, like is manipulating him or using this like organism to do something to him. Again, could go anywhere, and I'm really excited to see what Scott Snyder has in store for this Mr. Freeze, because I knew he was going to have a fantastic take on it, because he's had one on the characters so far. Like Black Mask is really cool. Joker is really interesting again, which is something I never thought I'd say. So Mr. Freeze was like a shoo-in for like, what's he going to do with him? It's going to be something really interesting. And here is, I'm just so hyped to learn more about him and his plans for Gotham and what he intends to do with Batman. Absolute Batman issue 7 blew me away with just how much of a refreshing take Scott Snyder has on Mr. Freeze and his origins, turning the villain into a literal ancient frozen monster, tapping into his roots as a horror writer to deliver a really terrifying version of the character, mixed with a subplot about Bruce's friends conducting a type of intervention with Bruce and his role as Batman, and you've got the makings of a great fucking comic. Definitely go and pick this one up, and pick up the last 6 issues if you haven't already. This is just a fantastic series. I'm going to give this issue a 10 out of 10.